Hi, it's me, Vicky Marie, and in today's video, I'm going to talk to you about Natalee Holloway. Natalee Holloway was a very young girl, only 18 years old. I'm going to show you some photos of her, first of all. Now, Natalee, sorry, that's not the one I want to show you. Here's Natalee. Natalee was 18 years old, and on May the 30th, 2005, so almost 20 years ago, this girl disappeared. She was on holiday in Aruba. Aruba is a Dutch colony, I suppose, or it's part of the Kingdom of the Netherlands, and it's in the Caribbean. And Natalee did not turn up the following day to get her flight home with her friends. Now, ever since then, Natalee was a missing person, and then finally she was declared dead on January the 12th, 2012. Nobody so far has ever been made accountable for her death. Nobody has been charged or faced trial for Natalee's death, but there are some widely suspected culprits, let's say. So let's chat. Okay, now the reason that I'm doing this video is because although this is, well, it's an ongoing case, but it is quite an old case. It's something I've seen many videos on over the years, that I've been interested in true crime. It's one of those cases you just feel so much for her family. It's taken a lot of twists and turns. It's got a real villain in this story that you know karma's coming from. It has come from in a way, but not for Natalee. So he has received justice, but for a completely different thing. He has not received justice for Natalee. And not only is he suspected of murdering Natalee, but he's really tortured her parents with various stories about what happened to her, what didn't happen to her. He has changed his story so often. And this is him here. You can see him in the picture next to the picture of Natalee. Now, this guy, his full name is Joran van der Sloot. Or it might be Sloot or Slot. Anyway, I don't care what his fucking pronunciation is. Sorry, excuse my French. He's a horrible person. All murderers are horrible. But sometimes they can be extra horrible, can't they? Especially when they torture people. Now, as he has tortured the parents of Natalee. Now, your Joran now is 36 years old, so he was young. He was young at the time. He was, he can't be 16, surely. Please don't tell me he was 16. If he's 36 now, he was born in 1987, and Natalee disappeared in 2005. So that's 50. So he was only 18 years old. She was last seen in his company, but also with two brothers, two natives of Aruba, a 21-year-old Deepak Kalpo, an 18-year-old Satish Kalpo. So Holloway was out, Natalee was out in a bar having a drink. In Charlie's Bar in downtown Oranjestad. So there's a big, obviously a Dutch influence in this place. And apparently that's where they met. That's where Van der Sloot and Natalee met, in Charlie's Bar, Carlos and Charlie's Bar. And when the bar closed at 1 a.m., Holloway was last seen leaving, or Natalee was last seen leaving in a car with Van der Sloot and these two brothers. Now, when she disappeared, then she failed to go and get her, take her flight back home to America with her friends. The Van der Sloot and the brothers were arrested on the 9th of June 2005. However, it's that old thing called evidence, isn't it? No evidence. They have, the brothers were then released. Van der Sloot was kept in custody longer. They were re-arrested. They were all charged on suspicion of RAPA and MURDR. But they were finally, on the 3rd of September, all released due to lack of evidence. No evidence. So it's true. What can you do? You cannot take someone to court without evidence. And Natalee's body, Natalee's remains still have not been found. So there's none of that sort of evidence, you know. But we don't know. Although Natalee has been declared dead, there is no remains have been found. Now, so as the investigation was ongoing, when he was released, Van der Sloot, he was required to remain within Dutch territory. So on the 5th of September 2005, he returned to the Netherlands and he started studying international business management. Later on that month, his travel restrictions were removed, and, you know, there was a big controversy that the initial arrests were only made under the pressure of Natalee's family. And one of the former deputy commissioner of Aruba police said that the family sidetracked the investigation by making it difficult for them to collect evidence to solve the case. Whatever. Anyway, he became like this little minor celebrity, this Van der Sloot shite, because he told the American television show A Current Affair that neither he or the Calpo brothers had sex with Holloway, but he did admit that they initially lied to the authorities. He said that they dropped her off at her hotel. Then they said that she was dropped off at the beach and left with him and left alone at the beach. He made lots of things that he said. Then he said at one time, he said that he'd seen her get into a boat and go off with some guy. You know, it was... Anyway, his parents were quite wealthy and they intervened on his behalf. They said that he'd been unfairly singled out. This poor guy was just this poor guy, just accused of, you know, all sorts of things when he was so innocent, you know. Anyway, you can imagine what this did for Natalee. At the end of the day, we have to remember it's Natalee's parents that have lost their daughter. His parents still had their son. So, you know, this coming out as if, you know, he'd been so hard done by when he was the last person to be seen with Natalee. And also, he had lied. You know, all the things he said couldn't be true. He couldn't have dropped her off at the hotel, left her at the beach and seen her go off with a man. All three of those couldn't have been true. Only one of those could have been true. So somewhere along the line, he was lying, wasn't he? Anyway, in April 2007, he published a book describing the case. And he said in the introduction, I see this book as my opportunity to be open and honest about everything that happened for anyone who wants to read it. But we're really... Basically, it's all about money for him. You'll see that as we go along. All about the money. And he didn't have any, you know, he didn't have any qualms about how he would get this money. Anyway, on 27th of April 2007, there was a new search for Natalee. and this was at his parents' home. The yard was searched, shovels, metal rods to probe the ground, etc. They still, they're still looking for Natalee even now, I think, but I think they've maybe more or less given up hope that they're going to find her. But the reason I'm doing this video is because there is a sign that they may finally find out what happened to their lovely daughter. Anyway, nothing was found. But in November 2007, Van der Sloot and the two brothers, were rearrested for suspicion of involvement in voluntary manslaughter and causing serious bodily harm that resulted in the death of Natalee Holloway. Now, I need to say as well, this case at the time, it was, obviously over the years when things have gone a bit quiet, this will reincite interest in this case because it was massive. This disappearance of this poor girl and all the convoluted lies, etc., that Van Sloot came out with, and events that happened afterwards, which we're going to go into in a moment, just created, you can imagine so much public interest. Everybody wanted to see justice for Natalee. Anyway, nothing came of that arrest either. They were all released by December, released without charge. Anyway, the suspicion was still cast on Van der Sloot, and apparently on the 11th of January in Dutch late night sort of talk show, Van der Sloot, and apparently he was quizzed by a crime reporter, Peter de Vries, and he got really angry and threw a glass of red wine into his face. There was a lot of undercover operations going on by the Dutch police, etc. They apparently, an undercover video was aired on TV, which showed him, Van der Sloot, smoking marijuana and admitting to being present during her death. The problem with Van der Sloot is he's told so many lies. My worry is that when he does eventually tell the truth, will he be believed? He's got, Anyway, he said that she had some sort of seizure while they were making out on the beach, and that he couldn't revive her, and they did not phone for he phoned another friend who came to help him. They did not phone for medical help, and according to Van Sloot in this video, they loaded her onto a boat and dumped her remains in the sea. Now, this, though, again, it's not really evidence. Even though he was saying it, you still have to prove it, don't you? And then Van der Sloot said he was the video because he was trying to impress him, believing him to be a drug dealer. So he was trying to be the big hard man to impress him. So that was no good either. Anyway, he then, because there was so much pressure on him, Van der Sloot, he checked himself into a psychiatric clinic, and then he left the Netherlands for Thailand. And he was supposed to be doing a course in Thailand. So you can tell his parents have got money. He's traveling all over the world wherever he feels like it. His parents are funding him, protecting him, because he's not really working. Anyway, he was supposed to be studying business at Rangsit University, but he dropped out, and he bought a restaurant. This is a bit chilling, I think. So this is a guy who's the prime suspect in the death of an 18-year-old girl. And he bought a restaurant next to the university campus that serves sandwiches and pizza. Anyway, Then later, so you can tell he's not a very nice person. You think he's not a very nice person now, wait till you hear the rest of it. So more undercover footage came out of him apparently making preparations, allegedly, for sex trafficking of Thai women from Bangkok into Europe. And the undercover reporter claimed that he was making, now these are claims, $13,000 for every woman that he sold into sex work in the Netherlands. Anyway, apparently criminal charges were being pursued against van der Sloot, and he was being Thai authorities, allegedly, for his involvement in the disappearance of young women that he may have recruited for a Thai, for sex trafficking. So basically, he was posing as a production assistant. Allegedly, again, allegedly, he was posing as a production assistant, a production consultant for a modelling agency that then supposedly would send these poor girls to Europe to work as models. Okay, now, so what did he do next? Nothing happened. He wasn't found guilty of anything. He wasn't sent to prison. He was just carrying on. He was a big poker player. He had his restaurant. Anyway, then in 2010, his father died, and he sold his Bangkok restaurant and he returned to Aruba. Now, it's long been suspected that his father may have had some involvement in this case afterwards, helped him cover up. But again, nothing, he was taken in for questioning. He has said, or there was talk that he had no control over his son and sent him to a psychiatrist, etc. But there was no evidence. And in November 2005, in fact, van der Sloot's father won an action against the Aruban government, clearing him as a suspect and then allowing him to retain his government contract. So he must have had some sort of, in it through his work, he had some contracts with the government for false arrest. So he sued them for false arrest, and he was awarded 40,000 Aruban florins, which sounds like a lot, but it's actually $22,300. But this was reversed. So this granting of compensation was reversed after an appeal. So then his finances did start to deteriorate. What that son sort of, anyway, it was his son, so I suppose he felt that he had to, defend him. So on the 24th of November 2008, Van Sloot, this is when he said that he'd sold Holloway into sexual slavery. Can you imagine what her parents are going through here? So far, he's told them he dropped her back off. Well, first of all, he didn't know anything about it. Then he said he dropped her back off at the hotel. Then he said he was on the beach with her, but he left her on the beach, and he regrets that. He said, I regret leaving her there on her own. Then he said this. So he said that he'd sold her into sexual slavery, receiving money both when she was taken and later to keep it quiet. He said that he paid the two brothers, the Calpo brothers, for their assistance, and his father paid off 2 police officers who had learned that she had been taken to Venezuela. However, he later retracted those statements as well. So he's just full of BS, this guy. Anyway, there were all sorts of things like that. But he released a phone conversation which he said was between him and his father, where his father allegedly again said that he was aware of his involvement in human trafficking. But it turned out that the voice of the father was proven, or more, proved as near as possible to not be the father speaking, but in fact was Deslert talking in a low voice, trying to mimic his father's voice. Anyway, when his father died in February 2010, he was only 57, his father. He died of a heart attack while he was playing tennis. Well, I'm not surprised after all he's gone through with this twonk of a son of his. I'm not surprised he had a heart attack. Anyway, his mother remarked that Van der Sloot, Joran, the son, had severe mental problems. Well, I think that's pretty clear. He's got severe mental problems, and he had blamed himself for his father's death. And then he left for Aruba before he could be sectioned, and he left a note saying, "I'm gone, do not worry." Now, the next thing, you just couldn't make this stuff up. This man, this Deslert, he's just a horrible, horrible, horrible man. He then, on the 29th of March 2010, he obviously didn't have any money. He contacted Natalee's mum's legal representative with an offer to reveal the location of Natalee's brother for an advance of $25,000 and a total of $250,000. So the legal representative went to meet up with him secretly. She said he was desperate for money. She gave him $100. And then she notified the FBI, which set up a sting operation with the Aruban authorities. So apparently he accepted the sum of $15,000 by wire transfer to his account in the Netherlands, following a cash payment of $10,000 that was videotaped by undercover investigators. He told Kelly, who is the legal representative, that his father, so notice I was blaming it, of course his father is dead now, can't say anything. His father buried Holloway's remains in the foundation of a house. However, it was determined that this could not be true because the house was not built at the time of Natalee's disappearance. And he then emailed her, the legal representative, later to say he'd lied about it. I mean, he's just unbelievable. Anyway, the FBI did not immediately file extortion charges against Van der Sloot for whatever reason. They left him to leave with the money to Bogota on his way to Lima. And they said that the case had not been sufficiently developed enough to enable filing the charges. Now, it's a shame because it could have saved a life here. Anyway, finally, in 2010, they did charge him with extortion and wire fraud, and a warrant for his arrest was released through Interpol. However, I don't think they found him. He was indicted in his absence. He was in Peru by now, I think. And then again in February 2006, in March 2014, the Peruvian government announced that Van der Sloot would face extradition to the US in the year 2038. Because by now he had taken another life of another young girl. They don't mention, here we go. So the young girl that they'd met, the other young girl that he removed from this earth, and I'm going to see if I can find a photo. Not much is really said about her, which is a shame because she's a victim just the same. Here we go. So this young girl, Stephanie Flores Ramirez. See if we can find some more images of her. This was her. She was in a relationship with him. I wonder if she knew about his past. I don't know if she did know about this past accusation. I think her father was quite well off. So, and ironically enough, the day that she died or was murdered was the 5th anniversary of Natalee Holloway's disappearance, the 30th of May 2010. So, you know, it's like an important date for him. You know, he obviously lost it. Anyway, what happened was she was 21 years old, this poor girl, and she died at the Hotel TAC in the Miraflores district of Lima. On the 2nd of June, a hotel employee found her beaten body in room 309, which was registered in Van der Sloot's name. He had departed from the hotel without returning the room key, and he'd left the television on. And the weapon that was identified in the room for the murder, that was identified to be used in the murder, was a tennis racket. Anyway, they obtained video of the two of them playing cards. They were the night before in the casino, in the Atlantic City casino. People had seen them, you know, there were witnesses that had seen them going to the hotel room together. He was there he'd entered Peru via Colombia because he was there for the Latin American poker tour. And poor Stephanie, she was a business student. She was less than a year from graduation at the University of Lima, and she was the daughter of Ricardo Flores, who was a former president of the Peruvian Automobile Club and the winner of the Caminos del Inca rally in 1991. So he was a famous person there. He was a prominent businessman. He ran for vice president and he ran for president. So he was, he said that, and Ricardo said that police found date rape drugs in his daughter's car, which was parked about 50 blocks from the hotel where she died. All her jewelry, money, identification and credit cards were missing, including about $1,000 in cash he'd given her to buy a laptop and over $10,000 she'd won earlier at the casino. And that had all disappeared. So that's when they recovered the surveillance tape, etc. And they sort of Googled into Van Sloot's background and found out his background. So Peruvian officials named Van der Sloot as the lone suspect in the homicide investigation, and an Interpol notice was issued. God, how many Interpol notices did this guy have? Anyway, it was believed he'd fled to Chile or possibly had returned to Aruba. Anyway, he was sighted entering Chile over the border, and his ex-girlfriend, where did they find these women? Melody Granadillo said that Van der Sloot had sent her a text message asking for money to buy a ticket back to Aruba. Anyway, he was finally arrested on the 3rd of June, and he was travelling in a rented taxi at the time. He was found with a laptop, foreign currency, business card case, detailed charts of ocean currents around Lima, and bloody clothes. His phone SIM card was missing, which had made, that's why they hadn't been able to track him on his mobile phone. So what did he tell the police had happened to poor Stephanie? He told Chilean police that unidentified armed robbers hid in the hotel room and they killed her when she disobeyed their order to be quiet. And his attorney said that he was on his way to Santiago to turn himself in anyway. He was in custody, so that's good. He was in custody. He was placed on suicide watch. Anyway, he was convicted, so, you know, everything, all the DNA matched blood was found. You know, it was more or less a bit of a slam dunk, this case. He was, well, apparently at some point, again, he confessed to killing poor Stephanie, but then, after initially proclaiming his innocence, but then later he retracted his confession. Are you seeing a pattern here? Are you seeing a pattern here with this liar? Anyway, what I just want to do, I'm not going to go through the whole thing of the case, etc., but he was found guilty. He was labelled a monster, a serial killer. He was apparently stabbed and critically injured by fellow prisoners. I mean, he wouldn't have gone down well, you know, this sort of Western guy murdering Stephanie. You know, it's like, anyway. He's talking about his wife here. When did he get married? Oh, don't tell me someone married him in prison, probably. Anyway, doesn't matter, because the thing is, basically, he was given a psychological evaluation, and it said that he presents traits of an antisocial personality and is indifferent towards others' well-being. Finally, on the 11th of January 2012, he did plead guilty to the qualified murder and simple robbery of Flores. He was convicted and sentenced to 28 years imprisonment, and he also must pay $75,000 to Stephanie's family. And after this, he was transferred to a maximum security prison in Lima. Now, his date of release is 10th of June 2038, so he's still got quite a way to go. Now, what's happened now, of course, oh yeah, apparently while he was on 4th of July 2014, he married a Peruvian woman called Lady Figueroa, who he met while she was selling goods inside the prison. And when they got married, she was 7 months pregnant. Don't even ask how that happened. Maybe they get conjugal rights there in that prison. They think, as I've mentioned to you before, here in Spain, they do, you know, there are conjugal rights for prisoners. So she was already pregnant. So he's got a child now as well, but dear me, I don't know. I just don't know why these women do this. But okay, so why is it all back in the news again? Well, I'll tell you why. Because now he is going to be extradited. Just let me get down to the actual details. And or he wants to be extradited. He wants to come back to America. Sorry, not America. He wants to go back to Holland, I would imagine. So let's just find the details. That's on my other account. Hang on. But there are conditions. And the conditions that are going to be set are that he must plead guilty to the extortion charges, and he must say what happened to Natalee. So he has been serving this prison sentence for quite a long time, hasn't he? But he's reached a plea deal with federal prosecutors, apparently. And he has a new plea and a sentencing hearing, which will be scheduled for Wednesday in Birmingham, Alabama. And they said that they will the authorities in Peru have said that they will temporarily extradite Mr. van der Sloot to face charges in the United States. So, because he's still got quite a way to do with this sentence for killing Stephanie. Now, but it is, if they give him a plea deal, they're going to give him a deal, but the condition is going to be he has to say what happened to Natalee. You know, the problem is, will he tell the truth? What story will he come up with this time? You know, can you believe anything this man says? I mean, unless he can actually say, to me, unless he can actually say where the remains are, and those remains can be found, instead of him just saying, oh, well, this is where they are, and, you know, that's no good if they can't be found, is it? So let's have a little look, if we can have a look at a video of him. Let's have a look at this one. I mean, I just think, what a horrible man. But, you know, it's important for the parents to find out what happened to Natalee, isn't it?
Prime suspect in the disappearance of Natalee Holloway is about to be extradited to the U.S. on extortion and fraud charges. More than a decade ago, a federal grand jury indicted him for allegedly trying to extort hundreds of thousands of dollars from Holloway's mother. Now, van der Sloot could arrive in Alabama to face those charges as soon as tomorrow. Elwin Lopez is in Birmingham with more.
The prime suspect in Natalee Holloway's 2005 disappearance, Joran van der Sloot, preparing to be extradited to Alabama. A source close to the family telling ABC News the 35-year-old is expected to leave Peru. Van der Sloot, seen in this new video, making his way to a prison in Peru's capital, his last trek inside the country before heading to the U.S. to face charges related to the teen's death.
They'll shackle him up, bring him back to this plane, and then fly him, land presumably in Alabama. The marshals will take custody of him, and they'll house him either in a federal prison or a local jail.
Van der Sloot had been serving a 28-year sentence.
He's a big guy, isn't he? Look at the size of him. You know, I mean, maybe are all three of those little titches. I mean, they can't all three be really little. He's a big guy.
A remote Peruvian prison for the murder of another woman. Authorities say he was the last person to see 18-year-old Natalee Holloway alive before she vanished nearly 2 decades ago on the last night of her graduation trip.
Yeah, the last time I saw her, she was sitting on the sand by the ocean.
His extradition comes 13 years after.
You can just see he's lying when he says that. Look at the way he's blinking. I think this guy, he tells so many lies, he probably can't, and you know, he's taken so many drugs, he doesn't even know, probably himself now, what happened. Look, he's got that eye again, the eyes off kilter.
On the sand by the ocean.
His extradition comes 13 years after an graduation trip.
Yeah, the last time I saw her, she was sitting on the sand by the ocean.
His extradition comes 13 years after an Alabama federal grand jury indicted him for allegedly trying to extort Holloway's mother for $250,000. The alleged demand in exchange.
No, hasn't he taken enough away from this woman, from this family? This is Natalee's mother. What still doesn't know what happened to her daughter. So Natalee's been declared dead, but you know, in a strange sort of way, they don't actually know for sure that she is. I mean, it seems evident she is, but and perhaps thinking that she has died is better than thinking of her being trafficked around the world for sex. I just think these poor people, how do How did they get up in the morning? You know, this man, he is a double, treble, well, he's a treble monster because he's killed 2 women, most likely. And also then what he's done to the family of Natalee Holloway. You know, God, there's got to be some justice out there for these people.
Exchange for information on where her body was buried. But in 2006, Vandersloot denied killing the Alabama teen.
The first thing that popped into my head was, what if something happened to her?
In 2019, Holloway's mother, Beth, speaking with ABC News about the last time she saw her daughter alive.
I helped her get her bag out of the car and just kissed her goodbye. Never could I have imagined.
And Diane Holloway's body was never found, but a judge declared her dead in 2012. Vandersloot was never charged in her disappearance. Diane.
And Ellen, what do we know right now about Vandersloot's expected arrival?
Yeah, so sources tell us, Diane, that Vandersloot is expected to arrive in the United States likely this week. We know that here's where a federal grand jury indicted him on those extortion and wire fraud charges, and this is where he will eventually face trial. Diane.
All right, Ellen Lopez in Birmingham, Alabama. Ellen, thank you. And I want to bring in host at Law and Crime Network, ABC News contributor Brian Buckmeyer for more on this. Brian, what do we know about these charges Vandersloot is facing?
I just want to say I will keep you updated on this. I've been very interested to see this development because this case of Natalee Holloway is one of those. You know, some cases, they get to you like you're hoping always for the family to get some answers. And you know what, some families, they like Keith Bennett's mother, Winnie, went to her grave, never found her son. Some families, they have to go through that torment all their lives. They never get a resolution. So this, you're sort of hopeful that there will be some resolution. But the trouble is, you can't believe what this guy says. So he's got, if he comes out with anything, he's got to say where Natalee's remains are, because that's the only way he can be believed.
Facing in Alabama.
So Vandersloot is not facing any charges directly to the murder of Holloway. Instead, it's for extortion and wire fraud.
Now, as you said, are not directly related to her disappearance or her death, but could this case kind of open up a window there? Could we see these charges expanded?
It's extremely unlikely because any part of the investigation that would have happened already led to, we don't know what happened to Natalee Holloway. When Vandersloot arrives, he's going to have an attorney. He's going to have the right to remain silent. Unlikely that he's going to cut some sort of deal for wire fraud charges to get a better deal for murder, if that is the charges that they can put on him. So I don't think we're going to learn anymore, unfortunately.
He's already facing...
Yeah, I'm just doing a video, yeah, please. It's all right.
Serving a 28-year sentence for a different murder in Peru. So what happens if he's convicted on these charges here? Could he serve time in the U.S. as well, or does he go back to Peru immediately? How does that work?
So it's literally a back and forth. So the treaty that Peru has with the United States is that they're allowed to send people back and forth for court proceedings. And so what we're learning is that he'll go for at least a year. They can extend to 2 years, and that's just for the trial and maybe some appellate issues as well. If he's convicted, he goes back to Peru. According to the Peruvian government, he should be out in 2038, and then he would come back to the United States to serve almost up to 20 years in prison if he's convicted on both.
Well, it's good news in a way. So it looks like whatever happens, he's not coming out of prison. So if he's found guilty of these extradition charges, which he's going to be found guilty, there's just no way he isn't, then he may have to go back to Peru. But then as soon as he's released from his sentence in Peru in 38, he has to go back to Alabama and then serve whatever sentence he gets there. So the thing is, he may come out with something to try and make some sort of plea deal. This is the hope. But as I say, you know, can he be believed? He's got, the only way he can be believed is if he can actually point the police to where Natalee's remains are buried. Now, if she was actually dropped out at sea, you know, her remains probably will never be found, but she may be buried somewhere, might she? But it would be nice for a mum to get an answer, or a parent. I don't know anything about a dad.
both charges.
I see. So he goes back to Peru to finish that sentence, and then if he's sentenced here, he comes back here to serve that sentence afterwards.
Exactly. It's a bit of a hot potato.
What are you watching for once he is back on U.S. soil and these proceedings get underway?
I'm looking to see how quickly they expedite this trial, what facts they have along with just the extortion and wire fraud. And if they do come anywhere close to, maybe he does know a little bit more about the murder. Maybe he is not the one who committed the crime. Accomplice, maybe there's some other facts that come out, because we've seen a lot of what we call no body murder cases where you charge someone with murder even though you cannot find the body.
And what happens to the money?
The money, in terms of what he's extorted, he's supposed to pay back, but it's hard to get blood from a stone, so to speak. And
Well, he's not going to be able to pay it back from prison, is he? If he's in a Peruvian prison, how's he supposed? Really, the government, the state should, there should be a facility, because he can't pay it back.
so he is going to have to face restitution of $25,000. I think an additional dollar on top of that if he is convicted. But how the system would work of him being in Peru, trying to get money for him from the victims, it might be more symbolic than actually getting that money to the victims in this case. That $25,000 might be long gone by now.
Is it 25 or 250,000?
Well, I think he only transferred $25,000, but he asked for $250,000.
Got it.
How much he got away with.
Awesome. All right, Brian, this is why we love having.
So that's the story so far. As always, let me know what you think in comments. Hang on. Poor Natalee, justice for Natalee and her mum, you know, just the things that people have to go through. And then, of course, Stephanie as well. He murdered Stephanie, but at least her parents know what happened to her. They had her remains, you know, to bring home and to bury with dignity, or, you know, and have some to know that, you know, she is home in a sense, at least. And just so difficult, I think, for people who don't know, you know, and don't have anyone to bring home. And very sad. But anyway, I thought I'd bring you this video because I think it's just shows you that justice, you can never think that, you know, people can never think they've got away with things. Years can pass, like with the Delphi murders. Years can pass. Sometimes people are caught quickly, like Brian Kohlberg. I'm going to do a video very soon on that. Idaho. I'm trying to catch up on these cases that are relevant now, that are happening now. The Brian Kohlberg case, he was caught very quickly. The police were brilliant in catching him. They, you know, there's lots of things, you know, to be said about that case. And as it comes up to trial, there'll always be things, again, like in the Delphi case, in talking about the Odinism and all that. Brian Kohlberg's defense team will be thinking of all sorts of things to sort of detract. But at the end of the day, he was caught quickly. Then you have, like, the Delphi murders, that's 6 years. This, you know, this is nearly 20 years. Sometimes justice takes time. And I don't know if this will lead to, you know, some resolution in the Natalee Holloway case, but I hope so. I hope so. And just, if nothing else, just this horrible man, just to realise he is never going to come out of prison. So even if he's thinking in his head, oh, well, because he's only 36. So if he's thinking, all right, I come out of prison in 1938, that's only 15 years. So he'll be 51, which probably seems like really old to him, but we know, or I certainly know, 51 is not that old. You know, you've still got a lot of life left. So if nothing else, he's got to do so. If he doesn't want to just come out of prison then when he's 51 and go straight back into prison in Alabama, he's got to think of something. And I hope what he thinks of is telling the truth. But whatever truth he tells, it's got to be provable, because you can't believe what he says. He's said so many stories. You cannot believe the stories that he tells. So, yeah, he needs to tell the truth and be able to back it up with evidence. Okay, so I hope you found the video interesting. Thank you everyone for your subscribes, your likes. Thank you to my members. If you want to join my channel, it's €1.99 a month. Every Thursday we have a members only live stream, special live stream. It's cancelable anytime. And the other thing I want to say is thank you to those of you who've bought me a Ko-fi, or if you've sent me a super, or you've paid any support you've given to my channel, either financial, just viewing, liking, subscribing. There's lots of free ways to support my channel, and it is all so much appreciated, much more than you know. So I will see you very soon in the next video. Live and love very carefully and wisely. Poor Natalee. You know, Natalee, she was an 18-year-old girl celebrating her graduation. She was thinking she should have been able to go out and have a drink and meet a guy. You know, he was quite a handsome guy, I suppose, when he was young too. And, you know, and think you will be safe and not think that they're going to take you off, probably assault you, and then MURDR you. You know, poor Natalee. So live and love carefully. You know, just be aware. Whatever your age, when you're alone, don't put yourself in a vulnerable situation where you're alone with people you don't know very well. Sometimes even people you know very well. You've always got to be aware. That's all. So until I see you again, may your God always go with you. Thank you so much for watching. Bye.